Hey everybody, MorbTron here. This video is a guide to Code of the Siegebreaker, Sunbreaker, aka Bottom Tree, Solar Titan. The first things first, you need to understand the basics of the subclass itself. The whole thing is basically built around sunspots. You get sunspots by getting an ability kill. Also, when you get an ability kill, you restore some of your health, which is fantastic. So get a grenade or melee or super kill, and you'll get a sunspot that spawns at the point of the defeat of the guardian or enemy or whatever you're going up against. And when you pass through that sunspot, if you stand in it or just run through it, you get Sun Warrior, which is a buff. Passing through the sunspot causes your grenade and melee abilities to recharge faster, which is fantastic. Also, if you're in super, your super duration will be extended. Now you can throw, I think, 1 or 2 more hammers, and the super itself just fades away slower, which is something you always want to make sure that you have on you at all times. Make sure you have the Sun Warrior buff while you're in your super. You can also get another sunspot just by throwing a hammer on the ground. Now, Mortar Blast. This is the melee. Strike an enemy with this melee ability to release a solar explosion. When it says explosion, it's not that big of a thing. It's not a one-hit melee, nor will it ever be, even with any sort of artifact mods. It's still a 2-punch melee kill in Crucible, and it puts on a small damage over time effect. Lights your enemies on fire. If they die while on fire, you get a sunspot. And you get Endless Siege, which is hammers that you throw in super, create sunspots on impact. While standing in sunspots, you throw hammers faster. So you can throw more hammers quickly while you are standing in a sunspot. Kind of the whole shtick of this super is standing in your sunspots, because they be good for you. A little bit of sun never hurt anybody. Now, in this video, I'm going to be covering 3 exotics that you're going to want to focus on as a Code of the Siegebreaker Sunbreaker. I'm not going to be covering any weapon loadouts, as you can use basically whatever you want. This is more about the subclass itself. Now, the 3 exotics I will be covering, of course, we have Phoenix Cradle, which buffs the Sun Warrior buff itself. It makes it last twice as long on you, and you can also give it to your allies if they run through your sunspots, which is absolutely fantastic. Great exotic, very underused. The next one is a neutral exotic, meaning that it can be used on any Titan subclass, but it's also just very good and can cause certain grenades to one-hit and just in general provide a lot of utility for Sunbreaker itself. And the last one is another one that is Sunbreaker specific. It is Ashwake. Now, this one basically modifies fusion grenades so that they are kind of like a thrown missile almost, where their speed through the air is greatly increased and they deal more damage and explode on impact. And in the Crucible, if you get a grenade kill, it restores your grenade energy 100%. So the first thing that I'm going to be covering today in my strategies doesn't really have to do with any exotics, more the grenade. And the grenade that I use specifically is the Thermite grenade. That is only because, unless I'm using Ashwake or Heart of Inmost Light, but the Thermite grenade is a very unique grenade. The only subclass to have it is the Sunbreaker. So not very many people are used to seeing it used in Crucible. It's a very powerful grenade overall, especially in PvE, but it does a ton of damage in Crucible as well. And you can do some things that a lot of people don't expect with it. So I've got my assistant here, Miles. He's here helping me out. Hello, a weird dance. Okay. And bouncing this thing off a wall, you can get a lot of distance on it. So let's say, I hurt him and I'm running away, right? Or he's running away from me. I can bounce a grenade off the wall and I can hit him with it. A lot of people are not going to expect that. Now, I only hit him once, and he had probably regened his health. But just know that being able to just bounce a grenade off of a wall and have that Thermite extend to an area where people aren't going to expect it is a very powerful thing. A lot of people are going to expect you to just throw a Thermite straight down on the ground, down a hallway, which is another great use for them. But being able to throw somebody off by having a Thermite just randomly appear out of nowhere, bouncing it off the wall, really does help. Now, as far as learning how the grenade bounces and stuff. A lot of it does come down to RNG, as the grenade isn't perfectly round, it is a cylinder, and if there's any sort of harsh edges, it can tend to do some weird things sometimes. So like if you throw it at stairs, it might go the direction that you're facing, it might go slightly off to the left, it might even come straight back at you. So just be aware, thermite grenades are a bit of RNG when it comes to how they travel and where they land, but overall, a very good tool to use. The first exotic I'm going to be covering here is Ashwake. So like I said, modifies your fusion grenades to explode on impact, and final blows of the fusion grenade fully recharge the grenade. So, right now I am using a 140 RPM hand cannon to show this off, but you can use any weapon you want, but basically if you get your target weak, because it will not one-shot. Now I'm just going to body shot him with a hand cannon and finish him off with a grenade. You saw the grenade there does 150 damage, so it is not a one-shot guarantee, so you have to damage them a little bit to get that. And the reason why I usually pair this with a 140 RPM hand cannon is you can get a body shot with a hand cannon and throw the grenade at them and guarantee the kill. You can also use a 150 for this, but higher resilience guardians might be able to survive the grenade, but most of the time something like a hunter or even a warlock, they aren't going to have the resilience necessary to survive that. But just know that some titans out there do roll around with 8 or higher tier resilience, and chances are you will not one-shot them. But Thorn is also a good 150 to use for that, because if you don't kill them with a grenade, you will kill them with the buff, or the Thorn tick damage, but just be aware that you will not get your grenade back. So, if I do not kill him with a grenade, I do not get the grenade back. So that's 150 damage. There you go. The second exotic I am covering is the Heart of Inmost Light. Now, like I explained, use an ability, it buffs your other abilities and gives them quicker regen. Now this empowered can stack, but oftentimes it tends to bug out and not stack correctly, so to avoid that, to make sure you get the most consistent gameplay from it, I wouldn't use an ability until the empowered buff wears out, unless you're in a pinch and you need to throw that grenade. But like I said here, I am pairing it with a fusion grenade. It does buff the other grenades' damages as well. It makes the thermites hit like a truck, and the incendiaries can one-shot if you basically land the grenade at somebody's feet or it blows up directly on them. But to meme it up, the fusion grenades do one hit with it. So they can one hit in a couple ways. You can punch another person around here to get the empowered buff, or easier, you have 9 seconds to throw this grenade after landing your barricade. It sticks for 2 damage and does 195 damage for a total of 197. Very, very powerful. Now you'll see there that I even got some of my grenade recharge back. And if I want to get both of them back, I'm just going to go over here and punch him. And you'll see here I have empowered again. It is recharging both my barricade and my grenade to get that back even faster.
One after another.
And another thing with it, there you saw that I chucked that grenade and the empowered buff ran out as the grenade was in the air. It buffs the grenade as it leaves your hand, so if you run out of buff as it is sticking somebody, do not worry, because the buff will count as long as you have it as the grenade leaves your guardian's hand. And the final, but my favorite exotic to pair with Bottom Tree Sunbreaker is the Phoenix Cradle, and like I had said earlier, it modifies the Sun Warrior buff, makes it last twice as long, and allies who pass through your sunspots are granted the Sun Warrior buff as well. But let's take a look at Sun Warrior itself. Passing through a sunspot causes your grenade and melee abilities to recharge faster and your super to last longer. It also increases all damage you do, so that's melee, grenade, weapon damage, super damage. It increases any and all damage sources. And since the Sun Warrior buff with the Phoenix Cradles will go onto your allies as well, it'll also buff all of their damage sources as well and recharge their abilities faster too. But it won't increase their super duration at all, because, well, it will if they're a Sunbreaker, but not, let's say, if they're like a golden gun. It'll buff their damage, but it will not buff their duration. So And Sun Warrior itself is a great buff to have. Without Phoenix Cradles, it lasts a total of 5 seconds. With Phoenix Cradles, it lasts 10 seconds. You'll see here it lasts 10 seconds, counts down. I can run back through the sunspot and even stand in it, and it stays at 10 seconds. And the sunspot will actually last quite a long time with Phoenix Cradles when you're just standing on it. And if enemies run through, they'll do the big old die. And that's probably my favorite part about Bottom Tree Sunbreaker, is people running through my sunspots and dying. It is probably, it is totally my favorite thing in the world to watch people run through the sunspots and die. Now, the one thing that I will say in defense of the people that run through sunspots and die, they are not colored differently if it is an enemy sunspot. They are not red, they are not orange, they're always the same color. So that's kind of bad on Bungie's part for that, but it is what it is. Now, the one thing I'm going to mention here next is when you pop your super, and this is more just with or without Phoenix Cradle, make sure that you are planted with your feet on the ground, or at least near the ground. If you're in the air, you will not get the initial sunspot that you get when you cast your super, which I'll give an example to right now. So when you usually cast your super, you will get a sunspot that spawns on top of you. And if you land a hammer on somebody mid-air, there will be a sunspot in the air, but for whatever reason, if you cast your super while in the air, you will not get that initial sunspot, meaning that you will not have Sun Warrior right off the go. So you'll end up wasting a lot of your super because of that. So if I'm in the air and I cast my super, I do not have Sun Warrior. And you'll see here how much slower my super ticks down while I'm standing in a sunspot and have Sun Warrior. It is very powerful. Very powerful buff. It can buff the entirety of your subclass, and it is absolutely fantastic. Now, what I will say, another thing you will learn with Code of the Siegebreaker, or even Top Tree Sunbreaker as well, if you're getting close to the end of your super and you go to throw that final hammer, if you do not have any more super energy left, even during the animation, if your super energy runs out as you are throwing that hammer, you will not throw the hammer. So you will go through almost the entire animation and not throw a hammer, which can leave you very vulnerable. So just be aware of that. If you're getting close to the end of your super, I would suggest throwing the hammer on the ground like you saw I do there, to give yourself another sunspot to stand in, or your allies a sunspot to stand in, because it is a very good buff and can help you rather than throwing a ghost hammer, throwing a hammer that does not actually exist. So, how did that not... whatever, there we go. Shotguns, I tell you what, they're interesting. As far as using the super goes, my suggestion to you would be to use it in Mayhem, or just use it in general. But Mayhem is a great training course, especially going up against other supers. Countering some other supers, especially Hunter supers, can be a little bit of a challenge. We'll give you an example of that here shortly. Use your sunspots to take out other supers, because they still do a ton of damage in those situations. Next up, I'm going to show you how to successfully counter a middle tree arc staff hunter spinning their little staff around with sunspots. Okay, so countering a middle tree arc staff, the one that has the spinny pull of reflecting your super and making you feel real bad about yourself. Pretty easy if you can do it with sunspots. Go ahead and pop and just try to attack me. So I've got my one sunspot I'm standing in right now. It is gone. Just basically put up a wall of sunspots between you and them. And if they are walking at you slowly with their spinny wheel of reflect your super and make you feel bad about yourself, you can counter them pretty quickly. Because most hunters aren't going to expect sunspots to actually hurt that badly, and will end up walking through your sunspots and getting themselves killed. Sometimes you'll end up trading if they catch on. So, not always a guarantee, but most of the time, in that scenario, a hunter will end up making you feel bad about yourself. because they reflected a hammer at your face, kind of like this. So don't do this, right? This is probably the worst thing you can do, is throw it directly at them, because then you're going to kill yourself with your own hammer. And that's a real feels bad, man. So definitely aim at their feet, or not even at their feet, and aim in front of them in their path. And unless they really know what they're doing, they're just going to walk at you. They're not going to jump, because they're going to feel very cocky about their being invincible and being able to throw your hammers back at you. Alright, the other super I'm going to talk about is Spectral Blades, because you're going to run into a lot of those, because Hunters are incredibly popular. And Spectral Blades is basically, on PC anyway, I call it left click to win, because they're invisible, they can see through walls, they have insane movement, and have pretty good super armor as well. So, hammers against Spectral Blades. A lot easier than you would think. Basically just hit them with a hammer. They can be pretty difficult to hit because, like I said, their movement is nuts. But if you can hit it with a hammer, maybe lay down a sunspot or two in the way. Not that bad to take care of. Now, as far as, like I said, using the super, knowing you're going to hit your target like I did there, just use the super, get used to it. Mayhem it up, or just use the super in general, and you'll do pretty good. It's just practice. Practice makes perfect as far as that goes. You can even just go into Mayhem private match and just kind of like set yourself up some targets, fly through the air, make sure, so you say, I want to hit that coil of rope. I just lost my super and almost got sniped. There you go, sunspots for the win. But that is going to be it for this video, so if you want me to cover anything more specifically about Code of the Siegebreaker Sunbreaker, aka Bottom Tree, let me know in the comment section down below. But if you like this video, do not forget to hit the like button for me. I would greatly appreciate it. If you are new here, subscribe for more Destiny 2 content. But do not forget to have a good day, everybody, and I will catch you all next time.